Welcome to Motherhood After Trauma, where we stop pretending and heal out loud. I'm Emily Cleghorn, trauma survivor, cycle breaker, and mama rebuilding from the inside out. If you're ready to break cycles, trust yourself again, and rise without shame, you're in the right place. Let's go. Before we dive in, mama, if you're a mama healing from trauma and trying to parent differently, but you're not sure what support or next step is right for you, I totally understand. And that's why I've created something to help. Take my free Find Your Next Step to Calm and Healing quiz to discover where you are in your healing journey and what your next best step looks like. You'll find the link in the show notes below. Hello, Mama. Welcome to this episode of the Mamahood After Trauma podcast. I am thrilled that you have taken some time out of your busy mama schedule to tune in and hang out with us and listen to the conversation today. Today, we are joined by Jessica Danel. Welcome.
Well, hello. Thank you, Emily, for having me on. It's Danel, but I know that I didn't tell you that.
Oh,
I know when you look at my name, that's okay. When you look at my name, it looks like Daniel, but it's Danel. It's kind of wonky, I know. So thank you for having me on.
Sometimes people look at my last name and they're like, how do I say that? So I completely understand, and I am so sorry. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm looking forward to our conversation today. So if we could get started by having you share a little bit of your story and how you came to be in the space.
Well, I mean, as a lot of mommies know that a lot of things happen in your life that are dramatic. Oh my gosh. But I have a lot of, okay, so let me just say one thing. Becoming a mother was traumatic for me. I mean, just the beginning. My first, okay, so I have 3 kids. One's a stepdaughter. She's 32 now. I have a son who's 25, and I now have she just turned 16. And so, but even my stepdaughter, it was, I always say like her teenage years was like giving birth because they were very hard, but, she lived with us. So that's, and it's different when a lot of moms out there, when you are stepmom, it's a different role than being it's hard to say. I mean, it's like, I feel like her mother, but I know that I'm not her mom. And so I have to deal with bio mom. And that was really difficult. We were in court a lot for my stepdaughter. And then my son came along. And of course, like I said, I was in court a lot for my stepdaughter. I ended up in labor in the courtroom for my stepdaughter, for my son. And I lived 4 hours away. Me and my husband, we lived 4 hours away. And so they wouldn't allow us to have a continuance. And so I had to leave. I got a ride from my sister, ended up in Palm Springs. I live in California, so Palm Springs, California. And my husband made it there like 20 minutes before our son was born. Thank goodness, because I would have just been so pissed, So there was a lot going on with being a stepmom and my first son. And I didn't, my son went in the NIC unit and he had to have a heart monitor for the first 6 months of his life. So, that was my first experience as being a mom. It wasn't easy, your son's going in the NIC unit. I mean, that's kind of a scary thing. But then came along my daughter, now Piper, my daughter, my 16-year-old. Oh my gosh. So Piper was a week late, she wasn't coming out. She didn't want to come out. And so, I wasn't in labor. So they induced me and we were it takes a long time. So 24 hours later, they're like, okay, you're ready. They misdiagnosed my dilation earlier, though, and wouldn't give me an epidural. So I had to do all this, cold turkey, not how I had planned. My son, I was able to get an epidural. Luckily, because my sister-in-law was a birthing nurse, and she's like, nope, 3 centimeters, ready to go. Let's give it to you now. Like, she was ready to go. This time, I was in was living in Bakersfield, and didn't have my sister-in-law, to help me. And so they misdiagnosed my dilation and did not give me epidural. So I'm sorry, anyone out there like does it naturally? No, sorry. don't recommend it. So so I was pushing for like, when it was ready to go, I was pushing for like 3 hours. And we're talking like my husband and my mother were playing tug of war with two towels. I was holding onto two different towels, and my legs were in the very awkward position as they pulled me forward, and I tried to pull back to try to push this baby out, and it wasn't coming. The nurse was using her fingers to like, around the head, like, okay, let's get her out, let's get her out. And I was finally, every time the doctor would come in, he'd go 20 more minutes. She can go 20 more minutes. And for 3 hours, finally at the
Oh
end, I
man.
did that whole scene, where the mother starts cussing. And I was like, he comes in, puts on his gloves, and he goes, another 20 minutes. And I sit up using my elbows, and I pulled myself up into the sit up position, and I looked straight at him, and I go, get this effing baby out of me right now. And I couldn't breathe because I had oxygen. He could barely hear me. And he looked at me and he gave me a bad look, and he took off his gloves and he threw them at my hoo-ha, and he said, fine, prep her for surgery. So then, I mean, I was just so like, everybody in the room was like, oh my God, I can't believe he just did that. Like all the nurses were gasping and everything. So then they wheeling me down, they're wheeling me down to surgery. And I didn't know this, but they're like, my whole hoo-ha was open for everybody to see as they're wheeling me down and no one decided to cover me up or anything. I was just I was wheeled down the aisle where everybody could see the nurse's station, everybody could see my privates. They get me in, they give me the epidural, and I don't know, I'm very awkward in weird situations, and I'm sitting there as they started cutting into me, and I was like, yeah, that stupid doctor, he kept telling me every 20 minutes. And the guy goes, yeah, that was me. Like, because I couldn't see him, because when you get a C-section, they cover the front of you, so you can't see them digging into your belly. And so he's like, yeah, that was me. And because I was sitting there dogging on the doctor that's literally opening me up. And my daughter came out, and she didn't have any noise. And I'm like, my mom was in there because my husband said he would faint if he came in. So my mom was in there, and she's like, oh, honey, she's so beautiful. And I'm like, well, why isn't she crying? And my mom's like, oh, they're just cleaning her. She's fine. And that was not the case. So
Mm.
because they did want my blood pressure to go through the roof, or me to die on the table. So they're telling me, oh, she's fine. Then she made a little noises and stuff. And then the nurses whisked her out of the room. And my mom's like, oh, they're just taking her to get her cleaned up and get her in a blanket and everything. And I didn't know anything. So I was like, okay. And then next thing I know, I was out. I wake up in the recovery, and they all came in, were like, we have something to tell you, And so like, my daughter wasn't breathing very well, so they had to give her oxygen, and she was pale as a ghost. And they said that, and she came out with this huge hematoma on her head, looked like she was dropped, and she had bloody fingernail marks on top of her head, and huge quarter-like bruises behind her ears, both of them, where she was stuck for hours, and it looked like she was beaten. And the doctor thought that she was dropped, and so he immediately sent her for a CAT scan. Come to find out that it was just bruising, but her hematoma looked like a cone, but it was so red, and
Mm.
it covered my whole palm of my hand. That's how white it was on top of her head. So a week goes by. She's in the NIC unit. I'm the kind of mom, I've never walked home with my child after birth. I literally have to. Both of my kids were in the NIC unit. And so, of course, this one too. Day 5, we're about to leave, and the doctor goes, nurse, did you hear this murmur in Piper? And she's like, well, yeah, like that, because nurses, they know it all because they're with the child like all the time. And so he's like, well, I'm going to send her off for an echocardiogram. And then they do and come back. And the doctor sits us down. It was like the next day. And he's like, you're going to want to Google this, but don't. It's just going to scare you. I'm like, what? So I had my mom on speed dial, and I dialed my mom, and he goes, your daughter has tetralogy of Fallot, and she's going to require open heart surgery. And I was like, dial mom. I'm like, mom, look up tetralogy of Fallot. Like, and she's like, and then I could hear my mom go, Jessica, oh my gosh. And so I'm like, okay, mom, I'll call you back. So like, I knew like what he was telling me was trying to like make me feel good was not good. And yeah, she needed open heart surgery. So, um, uh, tetralogy of Fallot is like, they used to call it blue baby. So kids used to self-regulate by taking a knee if they were gonna faint, or they were,
Mhm.
their heart would just, like my daughter, when I would feed her, she would fall asleep and like not wake up, and I'd have to shake her like, wake up, wake up. So a lot of these kids are very frail. They don't eat very good. They don't get a lot of nutrition, and they're very small. No, not my kid. No, no, no. I laid in bed with her with my boob attached to her, literally, and fed her until she was 5 months and ready for surgery. And she went to surgery, huge kid. And the doctors were very pleased with that because she did come through with flying colors. But there was a lot of things that happened during. I write about it in my book.
Mhm.
About we know we have to give blood, and there's all kinds of stuff that happened. We met a parent with a child that didn't do so. She was having surgery the same day, and was didn't have such a great outcome. But during this whole time after my daughter's surgery, I had built $1 million business from my home, and it was a preschool center. I started from the living room, and then I built onto my house, and then bought a school at a church, and then built up from there and built a 10,000 square foot commercial building and a 30,000 square foot play yard. So I had a huge, $1 million business, literally, and was doing very well until the economy hit us in '08.
Mhm.
Well, 2010, when my daughter was born, is when it was really bad. And after my daughter was born and I needed to be there for her, I just said, you know what? I'd rather be with my children than with my business. Even though my business, how you build a business, it's like your baby
Yeah.
in a way.
Oh yeah.
But
Yeah. Totally is.
yeah, but my daughter, and you know, and at that time, right about that time that this is how I decided to give up the business for my kids. My daughter was diagnosed with cerebral palsy,
Oh my heavens.
and so she was saddled with that. I mean, it was like another thing. She wasn't talking. It was like she was two-ish, and she wasn't really saying. She was saying like one words, and not she couldn't say I love you, like she couldn't put three words together. And I was kept telling my doctor like, she's not. I have a child development degree. Back then I only had that one degree. Now I have a master's degree in business, but at the time I wasn't very good at business. But I knew about kids and development because I'd been a preschool teacher for many, many years. And I'm like, she's barely not even walking yet. She's 2 and she's barely walking. She's
Mhm.
not talking very good. She's not eating solid foods. Solid food, you should be eating that like 8 months. She should have been
Yeah.
scarfing Cheerios, and the girl would not put a Cheerio in her mouth to save her life. No cookies, not a French fry, not a nothing. And so I couldn't even get her past stage 2 baby food. And so we got her an MRI, and he said, yeah, she has cerebral palsy. We're going to get her some OT, PT, physical therapy, speech, and all the things. And so, that is something we've dealt with. Come to find out, this rewind like 15 years later, last year, and I had her chromosomes checked when she was a baby too. Come to find out, last year we had our chromosomes checked again, just because science has changed.
Mhm.
And yes, she has an intellectual disability, and she has autism, which this intellectual disability often these children do, which I was always told she didn't. And then I know she has some really weird particular behaviors that would fall in line. So she is autism level 1. And so through the years, I've just learned it's like been one hit after another, losing the business.
Mhm.
You know, uh, I was, I don't even know why I should say this, but I'm gonna tell you. So after you had a baby, your hormones are just still crazy. So after
Yeah.
that, I had the baby, and I was about, I don't know, it wasn't too long after I was at my business, and the news came into my business, the local news. And I had been on the news a lot for my school because my school was like the largest. It is still I don't own it, but it still is the largest in our town. And so the news came in. I thought, oh, they're going to do a story on us. Great. I'm thinking great. And so they come
Mhm.
in, and no, they're not. They're doing a hit piece on me personally.
Oh my
Um,
God.
I know it was like cancel culture before cancel culture was a thing. I think it was like 2011 when this happened, or 2010, just after my daughter was born.
Yeah.
And
Cancel culture just looked different back then.
yeah. So they came to the school. Okay. So MySpace was a thing, right? It was a
Mhm.
social media site that us Gen Xers use. And also I had an account called on which a place called Photo Bucket. And back then you could put your photos in there, make memes, and then post them on your MySpace. And I would bring in photos and I wouldn't always post them, but I would make silly memes and I would share them with friends and stuff. And so, oh my God, this is so embarrassing. Okay, so I put a picture together on my photo bucket that had three, and I'm chunky, people. If you can't see me, but you go look me up. I am no skinny girl. I am a chunky girl, and I was chunky back then too. So I had made this picture. It's so embarrassing, but three ladies that were very overweight, dressed up in swimsuits, and they're looking over their shoulder and they're smiling, you know. And I made a stupid ass comment that said, so embarrassing. They must make love under pressure. And so, yes, wasn't very, it was funny to me. And I mean, I have a stupid sense of humor. I'm not, and would I ever put that out there? No. Also, there was another little picture of a little boy that took off, he was naked, but he put, what do you call those, maxi pads all over his body. Like his whole body was covered. Like you couldn't see an inch of skin. And I put, now that's a creative kid because he looked just like my son. And so the name of my preschool, of course, was Creative Kids. And it was a play off of my name of the school, but I didn't post them anywhere. They were just in this little account. Well, little did I know this account, I should have put it on private, but I guess I didn't because I wasn't very savvy when it comes to social media because social media wasn't really a thing back then. I didn't really think that people would want to go on to my photo bucket account to look at my stupid things. And so the news came and said, "Do you think that's funny, this picture?" And I'm like, "Yeah, like I thought it was funny. I was being honest." And she looked at me and I could read the room and she didn't think it was very funny. So I just said, I asked them to, I entertained what they had to say. And then I asked them to leave. And I said, "You don't have my permission to use my likeness on TV." Well, I didn't lose any parents, but I mean, my hormones, I felt very
Mm.
depressed and I was just very upset. And it was just that. And then the business was, I was injecting all kinds of money into my own company. And then my daughter was just she had the surgery. And then the next thing I know, we're just recovering after that. And then she's got cerebral palsy. And then and then my son, during all this time, my son has Asperger's. And so he's 8. I mean, all my kids are like 8 years apart. So my son was having all of his own stuff going on.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just torture. And then, I mean, there was just so much happening. I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
don't know how I kept my marriage together. We've been together 28 years. I don't know how I did it because there was just so many things that were breaking us down. Even my stepdaughter, we had problems out of she was graduating. We had a huge falling out because she wanted to be on her phone in the middle of the night. And her husband and I are like, "No, we have house rules. We cannot be on your phone in the garage," because she was sneaking it in the middle of the night, and so my husband's like, "You can't live by our rules. You go live with your mom." And she acted like we kicked her out of the house and all that, and she was staying at a friend's house. And we're like, "No, no, 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 no. You're not going to stay at a buddy's house. You're going to go back to your mom's house or you're going to stay home with us." And anyways, it was a huge thing. So we had drama with that. We had, my son was constantly having school problems. I had to homeschool him eventually. And then my daughter was just one thing after another. Still to this day, my daughter has a tumor that we're working on trying to get out. There's just so many things
Mm.
that I've just been saddled with. And it's like, how do keep a strong marriage, keep your house clean, try
Mm.
try to like
Somewhat.
try to handle everything and then still stay positive. I lost my business. So then what did I do? I was like, well, my husband's like, "You can go back to school or you can go to work." And I was like, "I'll do the school. Thank you very much." Because I never worked for really anybody else in a very long time. I had worked my own business for many years and I didn't know
Yeah.
what it would be like to work for the man. So I went back to school, got my master's degree. Well, I got my BA first, then got a job with a local TV station, believe it or not.
Mm-hmm.
I do broadcast media. And then during COVID, I was just sitting here and I was like, God, I have so much time on my hands. So I ended up getting uh, getting my master's degree. And I talk about it in my book too, about finding the breadcrumbs, because I swear
Mm-hmm.
I'm not lying. God was telling me all these little signs. I don't know if you've ever seen that commercial where the guy's like 11,011. He's kept seeing the word 11 and all these things. And it was them telling him to go get his master's degree for 11,000 or whatever it was. Trust me, it cost me more than that.
Yeah.
But I was seeing these signs and I was like, I gotta get my master's degree. I can do it at home online. There's a Grand Canyon University. It's a accredited school. And so that's what I did. I got my master's degree. And then I applied for another job because I wanted to get, now that I have a master's, I thought I can get a better job. And I did. I got a little bit better, but then I didn't get rid of my other one because I thought, oh, I just can't leave them just yet. They need me. And so I just kept putting off quitting the other job. And so now I actually have been working both jobs for over 4 years. I've been 8 years with the TV station and 4 with this other company, and just doing them at the same time during the day. And then I found downtime and I wrote a book. So I wrote a book about my crazy life, which we have not even touched on. Um, my parents put me in a drug rehab when I've never done drugs. Like that's where the book starts. It's crazy. I've never done drugs, not even to this day. Um, I just I'm a crazy hyper person. There's no reason why I would need drugs. Put it that way. I like so the book goes through all these different things that have happened to me. I myself went through several surgeries when I was little, and I talk about my remembrance of all of that trauma that happened during that time. I was called Popeye Girl because I have a lazy eye, which is why I had the surgeries. So I was teased a lot. In my family, my dad he used this term. I was the only one that was disciplined this way. My dad would ask me how I would want to be disciplined, the belt, the hand, or the hanger. And I had to pick which one I wanted. I always picked the belt because believe it or not, my dad's hand was very big. My dad was a big dude, and he would spank me until my butt was the right color of red. And then the hanger always left welts. So I chose the belt because the belt he would sometimes miss. And then I would cry louder, like as if that hurt. Oh God, daddy, that hurt. And so then he would go, then he would say, life is nothing but lessons learned. Did you learn your lesson? And then I'd have to tell him what lessons that I learned. So I talk about that in the book a little bit. There's just so many things I could talk about, but that are in the book that are just so crazy that you just will not believe the things that I've been through. My school had a high school shooting. It was the first high school shooting in America in 1992. It didn't get a lot of notoriety at the time because the Rodney King verdict came out on April 29th. And then and then the riots ensued. And then just right after that, on the 1st of May, is when our school, Eric Houston, we all went to school with him. We all knew him, came into the high school. He killed 4 people and shot 9 others and held 80 hostages for like 10 hours. And so I talk about that in the book. It's hard to talk about because without crying almost it's just a crazy thing that happened to all of us. And I swear, had they really paid attention to what happened to us in 92, maybe Columbine in 2000 might not have happened, I don't know. But maybe it just needed to happen more and more and more. Yeah, it's just so crazy. And it's hard because the guy that did our high school, he didn't have Call of Duty back then. They didn't have like these shoot 'em up games, or Nintendo barely came out. I mean, and even the movies back then were very vanilla, very soft and like rom-coms and things like that. It wasn't like a harsh thing. So for him to do that without having those influences was just kind of like dark, Yeah. So then when my husband and I met each other in Palm Springs, we got married like 3 years after we met. I basically had to tell him like, shit or get off the pot. I'm not going to stay, we're not going to be together forever and ever and ever. And then you're not going to marry me. Like, you got to put a ring on it. So that happened. But the wedding, in my book, I talk about it as a Jerry Springer wedding because my whole family is crazy. Like every single one of them. I love you, Mom, but you're all crazy. And my family could not get beside themselves to allow me to have a day. I mean, there were death threats. There were, I'm going to kill myself. And there's just all kinds of stuff happening on my wedding day that I talk about in my book. And my brother announcing that he's going to ask his girlfriend to marry him, like right at my reception. And like you're not supposed to do that at your sister's wedding. You do that at another time. You don't announce to everybody you're going to do that and then leave the reception to go to a different reception, a friend's reception that's better. Anyways, I guess I feel jaded in a way, but anyways, so that was my Jerry Springer wedding. And you just have to pull up your big girl panties when life gives you this crap. Like, my wedding, that was just crap. And what do? You just got to pull up your big girl panties and move on and keep trying for something different. After my book, I thought to myself, well, how am I supposed to get my book out there? No one's going to want to read my stupid book about my stupid life. Because it's just a bunch of stories, but they're funny. I think they're funny stories. But I thought, well, what do I do next? So I thought, well, I'm going to start a podcast. And so that's what I did. I decided to start a silly little podcast. It's very small. I just started it not too long ago. In fact, I think I'm only on episode 34. So it's like in the beginning stages. It's like a baby. It's a baby bird. And it's called Just Saying. Just Saying with Jessica Danel. I have to put the whole thing in there because I think there's other Just Sayings, but mine's the only one with the big mouth. I'm the big mouth. And so I thought, well, I'm going to start this podcast and I'm going to tell everybody about my book, and hopefully I can relate to things that my guests have been through, because I've been through so many different things, so many crazy things. My car caught on fire and exploded. I almost died in it. Like, it was crazy. Like, it was like in the movies, like this big crazy thing. I almost didn't make it out of. I know, it's crazy. I took the car when I was younger. I graduated high school, and it was I was going to move out when I was 18, but I was just before my 18th birthday, and me and my friend decided to go to Utah from California. And then on our way home, we get lost. I end up in Idaho with no money. Like, okay, so you're in Idaho in a car with no money and you're 17 years old. What do you do? Well, I made it home by the grace of God, and I talk about it in the book. It's kind of a funny story. I'm just kind of spitballing around in the different chapters, but I just know that there's a little piece of me, well, a piece of everybody in my book, that they'll find a piece of themselves in my words, because I just feel like it's a coming of age story. We've all lived through these crazy things, and I try to spin it with a little bit of humor, and I don't know, just
yeah. What's
you
your
know
book
what I mean?
called?
Sometimes you gotta laugh. You gotta laugh at the crap that comes your way, and you just gotta try to make it good, I guess.
Absolutely.
Does that make
What's your
sense?
book called? Where can people find it?
Okay, so my book is called Bucket List from a Redneck Girl. So I'm from Northern California, in a small little farming town, and everybody knows everybody. I talk about it in my book. I live in an area called Park Circle. So you got to get the book. It's really, really funny. It's a good read, actually. You could read it on the plane, or at your kid's soccer game, or when you know what I'm saying, when you're just got
Yeah.
you want to have a good laugh, and you want to hear somebody else's sad story and happy stories and all the stories in between. You can find my book in Amazon, or anywhere books are sold, really. I think you can buy it online anywhere, but Amazon is probably the best bet. Is the easiest one. If you have Prime, you don't have to pay for shipping. And also you can get it on audio and ebook too on Amazon. So I know a lot of people out there like to listen to books now, and you can listen to the book. It's not me talking. I know you would all want me to talk, but no, but I tried to get somebody that had good inflection, because the way I am talking to you now is exactly how I wrote the book. Just kind of fast
Yeah.
talking, and I'll stop to say something kind of silly, and it's very self-deprecating in some ways, just like I am, obviously. And then the podcast, you can get it at Spotify or anywhere really that you can find podcasts. I also have a website. It's justsaying.net. So that's JESSSAYING.net. And then you can go there, go to podcasting. If you scroll down, you'll see all the different episodes and the future episodes. And if you click into that person's name, you can actually go to their website. So you can connect to my guests in a way and find out more information that way through them. And my book, all my information on my book and everything, and my social media sites are on there too.
Awesome. Well, I will make sure that there is a link to Jessica's website in the show notes. That way you can find her podcast, her books, her social media, all the things in one easy click. Thank you so much for chatting today, Jessica. It was a pleasure.
I appreciate you having me on. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Be sure to follow the podcast so new episodes land right in your feed each week. And if you're wondering what your next step toward calmer, more confident motherhood looks like, take my free Find Your Next Step to Calm and Confidence quiz found in the show notes below. Until next time, Mama, mend the past so you can mama in peace.